In experiments, there's a manipulation of at least one variable to test its effects on another. If participants are exposed to more than one manipulated condition, it's important to consider the order these are presented, since repeated experience with a task can have huge effects on results. We'll talk about carryover effects, but first let's consider how participants are assigned to experimental conditions. Let's say you wanted to test if the attractiveness of a defendant influences their judgment in a trial. In a between subjects design, participants would be randomly assigned to judge a hypothetical court case for an attractive or unattractive defendant using pre-rated photos, then give a verdict of guilty or not guilty. In between subjects designs, participants experience only one condition. For a within subjects approach to this same research question, participants would be given a case with an attractive photo, then asked to judge whether the person was guilty or not guilty. Then they would be retested in the second condition with an unattractive defendant and make a judgment. When participants are tested on the same or a similar task repeatedly in a within subjects design, there's a danger that previous testing experience can affect results. A carryover effect is a phenomenon where previous testing experience affects subsequent behavior or performance. These are sometimes called order effects, since repeating tasks means there's an order that participants do them in. If you do something over and over again, you might get better at it through practice. Other times, doing something over and over again leads to fatigue, especially if the task is boring. Failure to consider order effects has fueled some pseudoscientific claims. These power balance bracelets claim to work on Eastern philosophies to channel the body's energy to enhance physical performance. The bracelets use hologram and new ion technology, but there's no detail on what these are. Several prominent athletes endorse these bracelets, but a scientific approach doesn't rest on testimonials. What makes the power balance bracelets interesting is the number of demonstrations supporting the company's claims. There are dozens on YouTube. There are some good reasons why a YouTube search or a company website's vaguely supported claims aren't the best scientific sources. Let's look at a scientific approach to assess the effect of these power balance bracelets. This group of researchers use their critical thinking skills to identify a flaw in company testing. With this question in mind, the authors of this study questioned the validity and effectiveness of the power balance company tests, which are done during advertisement. Although the company conducts 4 tests, the first test always without the band, whereas the second one with the band, it does not control for learning effect, fatigue, or placebo. We won't consider placebo treatments for now, but it's something important to consider when testing claims like this. Human beings can think about the condition they're in and act in a way to support or refute the company's claims, depending upon how they feel about the bracelets. For now, we'll focus mainly on possible order effects in the demos done by the company and its supporters. If everyone gets the same order, it's impossible to determine if it alters participants' behavior. So how can we address order effects? These researchers used a within subjects approach to test the power balance bracelets, but the conditions were counterbalanced so that participants experienced the conditions in different orders. In addition to the bracelet and no bracelet conditions, indicated by B, B, and C respectively, these researchers added a control bracelet with the hologram removed, they called BA. Then they measured strength, flexibility, and balance, and unlike the company demos on YouTube, there was no effect of any bracelet from the control condition. By counterbalancing conditions, the effect was eliminated. Test yourself. What could explain the order effect found in the company's demonstrations of the power balance bracelet? Choose all that apply. A, boredom, B, fatigue, C, practice, D, placebo, or E, between subjects design. Order effects can be difficult to manage when there are many stimuli. For instance, this is a figure from Robert Zience's classic work on mere exposure, a phenomenon whereby we prefer familiar to unfamiliar stimuli. He tested this by using phony Chinese characters and nonsense words, stimuli that he knew his participants would not have seen before. He was then able to manipulate the number of times they saw the items, 0, 1, 2, 5, 10, or 25 times. Then the participants were shown all stimuli and rated them for attractiveness on a 7-point scale. This is a pretty simple within subjects experiment, so I proposed we design a similar study in my third-year experimental social psych class a few years back. We had several Chinese students in the class who could tell Zience's characters were fake, and we thought this could affect our results. So instead of doing a direct replication, we decided to use ink blots instead. I went searching for some and came up with these. Knowing about order effects, we had to make sure that the stimuli we presented to participants were counterbalanced across the different frequency conditions. For instance, for some reason, this ink blot is consistently rated higher than the others, if all are just shown once. Therefore, if this ink blot was used for the 25 times condition for everyone, then of course it would be rated higher. This gorgeous ink blot could still be used, however, if it wasn't restricted to one condition. For this simple experiment, which took about 50 minutes to run in total, ended up taking over an hour. Why? In order to ensure that the stimuli showed up in each condition, we presented them in different randomized orders, according to this table. This method of organization is called a Latin square. It's an array with items showing up exactly once in each row and column. By arranging all the stimuli like this, it means that inherent differences in attractiveness, like for this bubbly shaped one here, get distributed across the different conditions. So, for a fairly simple within subjects experiment, we had to create different groups in order to counterbalance the stimuli. Carryover effects can be problematic in studies with repeated testing. They can lead to enhancement through practice or impairment through fatigue. If all conditions are presented in the same order for all participants, it's impossible to tell if these effects exist. Sometimes order and carryover effects cannot be avoided, so strategies like counterbalancing aim to redistribute potential effects across conditions.